please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its meeting held on March 27, 2012. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona Cedarville Times, the Star Ledger, the Herald News, the Township of Verona, and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted in each of Verona's 6 schools, the board office, and town hall. This posting was also sent to the Gov newspapers, all SCA presidents, and SCA liaisons. The Verona Board of Education operates under a consent agenda format. Any board member has a right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public present. Mr. Enos, Mr. Elliott, Mr. Block. Here. Mr. Molino. Here. Mr. John.
here. Okay, we have our work session tonight. So we have abbreviated resolutions, but we do have presentation. Ms. Jewett is going to do a education update and also a strategic plan update. And does anybody have any question or comment on any of the agenda itself? Nope.
Good evening, everyone. I usually do around this time of year a curricular update. This is a little earlier than when I generally do it, so I don't quite have all of the data that I usually have for that. And I will talk about that as I get through it. But what I'm going to just talk a little bit about is some of our curricular initiatives, go over the status of where we are with the strategic planning process for our next plan, and that will be it. The first slide here, so the first piece of the presentation is the curriculum update, and this slide was actually in my presentation last fall and last spring. There are areas of focus for last year, and where do we come up with the areas of focus? From basically, we look at our student performance data, from any state mandates or initiatives that are currently in play, and our strategic plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about how the strategic plan impacts our goal setting as well. So for last year, as you're aware, we started looking at a process for implementing a reading workshop and updating our reading program. We implemented writing workshop in grades 5 and 6. It had previously been implemented in grades K through 4. We tweaked our Envision math alignment in grades K through 4 and expanded it to grades 5 and 6. We worked a lot last year on aligning our curriculum documents to the Common Core state standards and the updated New Jersey Core curriculum content standards. And as you'll see, I have highlighted in red, this was obviously a big initiative for us last year. Prior to last year, we had 0 of our curriculum documents updated in the UBD framework, board approved and online, and as of this September, we have over 90 of those documents available online in the UBD framework, aligned to either the Common Core or the New Jersey Core curriculum content standards, available to all the staff and the public. And it's not that all of these were done, it makes it seem like they were just all done in a year, but actually it was a 3-year process from when we started the Understanding by Design initiative, and the teachers were finally at the level of training and of development after writing all of their UBD units that they were able to develop scope and sequence documents from those. And we're continually refining those. You'll see on the board agendas this year for approval additional curriculum documents as well as revisions to the documents that were posted last year based on standards updates or realignment of the curriculum. And that is really what our intent was with creating these documents, is rather than having them sit in these ugly orange binders on a shelf in the superintendent's office that nobody ever looked at, they are actually working documents that are updated when they need to be and are accessed by the teachers. And the last piece on here are the in-house assessments. And this is another component that we have spent a lot of time on and will continue to be a focus for the coming years. Partly for a number of reasons. We need, the state assessments are only a snapshot of student performance, and we can't possibly use one assessment to gauge the effectiveness of our program or to gauge a student's level of understanding. So we are really looking to refine our in-house assessments. We also need to look to align them to the new state assessments that will be coming out, the PARCC assessments, and as part of the new teacher evaluation system, assessment is now going to be tied to teacher performance, so it's really important that we make sure we have valid in-house assessments. And up here are some of the examples of some of the common assessments that we've looked at developing. Document-based questions, we've developed those types of assessments for social studies in grade 7, and now we're expanding them to the other grade levels and the high school as well. And it's aligned to the NJS writing holistic scoring rubric, so it gives the students practice utilizing that. We have the grade 7 and 8 English teachers developed a common writing rubric based on the NJS holistic scoring rubric, and we have now common midterms and final exams at the high school in all courses. And we've started to use common assessments in math in grades 5 through 8 as well. So we're continually looking to expand that. Yes.
So that, on the second one from the bottom.
Yes.
So there's, if I recall right, there's a couple of updates that are going to come this year for implementation in September.
Yes,
right?
it's the middle school common core. That's the last year to be, the last set to be implemented.
So, and then after.
And we still have internally, we haven't gotten to all of our electives yet. And we basically, because we couldn't rewrite all the curriculum at once, we prioritized based on when the standards needed to be implemented and where we had the biggest need in the district. So the other focus this year are a lot of the elective courses that we haven't had a chance to get to yet.
So when you come back in the spring, it's probably there used to be when you first came on board, you did a matrix.
Yeah, the 5-year plan. That is not, and that was updated last year. It actually ends up getting, it's a 5-year plan that gets changed every year, because when we get new timelines from the state with when the standards need to be implemented, we sometimes have to shuffle things a little bit to make sure that we update the curriculum.
Yeah, so in the spring you should include that.
Yep, absolutely, and that's on, it is posted on the website as well. Yep.
The update.
Yep. Yeah, it was updated last January after the state came out with the latest kind of revision of the timeline. So that's, but I'll refer to that as well in the spring, definitely. Okay, the next page, you might recognize this. This is from the district fact book. I'm sure you've all gone online and poured through the district fact book. But that was something that Mr. Forte and Mr. Quattrochi worked on at the end of the summer. It's something we've put out the past couple of summers. It's kind of a comprehensive look at the district. And this particular page, I know it's a little small up there. I will post the presentation online. These are accomplishments that we've spoken about before. I believe they were highlighted at a board meeting earlier this year. The main piece of this page are AP results. And I stood up here about a year and a half ago for over 4 hours when we talked about changing some of our requirements. And we did promise that we would evaluate the outcome of those and come back to you with it. And what the results have shown is that student participation increased, as did the percentage of scores 3 and above, of scores 3 and above, of scores 4 and above. So really pushing the students to meet their potential, it ended up being, they ended up being very successful. And in fact, we are anticipating in the spring of 2013 to be administering 370 AP exams. So whereas a couple of years ago, I believe we were at, if you look on here, we administered 170 in 2010. And, go ahead.
Plus kids.
No, these are number of tests. The number of, yes, the number of students, that we just, I don't know if that's actually on this slide. On the slide, we have total number of students in honors or AP courses, but, oh, it's 100, right, 127. You do have that on here. 100. So of those tests, because students can take multiple tests, we had 127 students enrolled in AP last year compared with 89 the year before. So we're not only just having the same kids take more AP tests, we actually are expanding the population of kids that are enrolling in those courses.
That number of tests, the 170 in 2010,
yes,
becomes 180, and then it goes to 269, and this year it's anticipated to be about 370.
Yep.
In 2007, that's the number that was about 70?
That was, yes. Yeah, say that again. What?
In 2007, which is
oh,
not
yes.
on the chart, right? When we started,
yes, it was about 70.
This
yes.
is something we need to focus on. Is about 70.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular discipline where the increase is focused on, or is it more advanced English? Is there any particular topic?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for it. We did a little bit of a restructure last year, so it actually. Instead of students having to choose between AP Lit and Comp or AP Lang and Comp, they're able to take both because we made one junior year course and one senior year course. And of the students taking AP Language and Composition, I mean, we went from, I think, 7 kids to 30 some odd kids, and I'm pretty sure every single student in that class got a 3 or better. So, encouraging them to take that class was definitely, had a positive effect. And we actually got a number of emails this summer from parents saying how many either credits their children got at the schools they went to, or if they didn't get credits, the fact that they had many more options as freshmen because they had placed out of a number of entry-level courses. So even if they're not getting credits, they're at least meeting some of the requirements so they can take other credits. So that was nice to hear as well. So that's been very positive. And I think, just the whole kind of breaking down that, mystical AP is only for, certain students that fit into a specific category. I think breaking that down for the teachers and the students has really been evident over the past year, and more students are trying things out. And even if it's, they happen to have an interest in biology, so they just want to try an AP Bio course because it's something they really love. That's what, we've been encouraging, and I think it's been successful. And at the bottom of this screen are listed are the AP honors that you get from the College Board based on how many tests you take and the scores you receive. For the first time ever, we had national AP scholars, which we have never had before, and we had 3 of them. And just so you know the definition of a national AP scholar, students who score at least 4 on all exams and 4 or more on 8 or more exams. So we had 3 students that took 8 or more exams and scored a 4 or 5 on them. Yes. Yeah. I think they were seniors. I think they were, because I don't know that juniors would actually have taken it. Yeah. So I believe they were seniors. Yes. So that's pretty impressive. We've not to mention the other categories of scholars that we had. So just the change of the culture. It's not that we added a ton more AP courses or a whole bunch more AP teachers. We just basically changed the attitude towards AP, and this was the result. So, I think that's extremely positive. HESPA as well, we've talked about this the past couple of years. This has been a focus at the high school. And the trend over the past 3 years in both language arts and math has been to decrease the number of partially proficient students, or decrease the percentage of students scoring partially proficient, and increase the percentage of students scoring advanced proficient. So that's been a positive trend as well. And a lot of that was the result of curriculum alignment that just hadn't been done, so that the students weren't getting the material they needed in order to be able to be proficient on the test. So that has helped as well. We do not, the ASK scores were released almost a month later than they were last year. Normally we get them in August and we're able to do all the data analysis over the summer. They didn't come in until September. So we're actually just in the process. We actually have finally broken it all down, and now we need to kind of go through it and look at the trends. Across the state, for the most part, the scores went down. We had some areas where we went up, some areas where we went down. So what we really need to look at now, this is where the DFG comparison and the comp comparison really comes into play, because we need to see, in the areas that we dipped a little bit, did we dip as much as everyone else dipped? Because if we didn't, then that's actually a positive thing, because if the trend across the state was that the scores went down, because they change the test every year, and so sometimes that happens, so it's hard to compare year to year, but if we compare our drop to everyone else, it will be telling. So that's the next piece that we'll be looking at, and I'll give an update on that at some point in the fall, whether it's through committee and the board reports it out or some other way.
When you get those comparative,
Yes.
you get the comparative results, you get the comparative on the cluster scores too? Or just
Yes,
on the-
yes.
The clusters, or you get,
We can look at for the, yes, we do get it for the DFG, yes. Absolutely. And that's the other piece that then we can really break down in language arts, the reading versus the writing, and in math, look at the different components and see where we might have some lapses in the curriculum. And then the last piece of the curriculum presentation are now our 2012-2013 areas of focus. And as I said before, these come from the strategic plan, which drives our current district initiatives from various state mandates, which we have a couple of right now, as well as areas that we identify in need of improvement from the student performance data. So we have begun reading workshop training for the 3rd and 4th grade teachers. That is being implemented, and I actually was just at training today. We had the consultant here today working with the 3rd grade teachers. Writing K through 6, we are continuing the writing workshop implementation in those grade levels. Math grades 7 and 8, we're working on the alignment of that to the Common Core state standards. Science grades K through 12, of course, we have to have new standards for those as well. So those are national standards that New Jersey is going to be adopting. So Dr. Santoro has actually developed professional learning communities among the science departments, and they're going to spend the entire year examining the different components of the standard so that they become very familiar with them. The in-house assessment piece is obviously a top priority. As I said, it has to do with the new park assessments, the new teacher evaluation, and the Common Core. Teacher evaluation system, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. I will likely do a more formal presentation on just that later this year, or make that a part of my spring update, because that is a huge initiative in the district. As per the state, the new Teach New Jersey Act that was signed on August 6th, we need to implement a new teacher evaluation system by September of 2013, and it needs to be one of the models that's approved by the state. We have selected the Marzano model, and we've already begun our training. The administrators, we actually are sharing some of the training costs with Glen Ridge, and not only are we sharing costs, but by actually participating in the training together, it allows us to collaborate with them and really be able to form a community between our two districts as we both navigate this new initiative. So, and we had another day of training last week, and now we will be turnkeying that to the rest of the teachers in the district throughout this year. So that is unfolding as well. This is the first year where we have the new elective structure at the high school, so we have a lot more semester electives that we're offering, and that has been successful so far, as well as the world language restructure at the elementary school, where we do have Mandarin now at Lanning, and it seems to be having been received there extremely well. So that we will be looking more into, and in the spring I will be talking about the plans for that for the future as well. It doesn't look like, I can tell you right now that for grades 5 through 12, we are not looking at eliminating a language from there or changing that structure right now. We really want to focus on making the elementary school program as meaningful as possible in the limited time that they have. So that's going to be our focus for this year to see what we'll do for next year. Okay. Does the board have any questions on that piece? The strategic plan?
Okay, so you're gonna be back then, January, February?
Yes.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
Next update before budget.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And I'm sure you all do too. Okay, so the next piece, the other role that I've taken on this year is as the internal coordinator for the strategic plan. I actually will be formally approved for that, I believe, at the next board meeting. And this is a very exciting process. There's a couple people in the audience who have been involved in the process so far, and a couple people up here as well. And what I just want to talk about tonight, give a little bit of an overview for those of you that, in Verona, obviously we have had one. We went through this process 5 years ago, and we are currently in year 5 of our current strategic plan. But just to provide a little bit of an overview of what the process entails, we did have our first meeting of the steering committee on October 2nd, and I left feeling very inspired, and I think a lot of the folks there did as well. You had a group of about 25 folks who were teachers, parents, all leaders in various groups. We had the mayor, we had the town manager, we had board members, we had administrators. Every single person was there for the sole purpose of developing a plan to enhance the experience of Verona students. And to actually have that many people from the different aspects of the community that they come from in a room to discuss nothing but that, it's pretty powerful. And you realize, this is some of the most important work that you will do, because what we are doing there will directly impact our students. So it was a very meaningful experience thus far, and I'll talk to you a little bit more. In terms of why we do a strategic plan, it's really to ensure that our resources and our focus remain completely centered upon student achievement. The strategic plan is made up of our beliefs, our mission statement, our goals, strategies to support those goals, and action plans and expected results from those goals. And we utilize the strategic plan to guide basically everything we do. It guides our committee structure for the board, it guides us forming the district goals, and guides the development of the budget and the allocation of the budget. So it really, I think some districts have strategic plans and they don't necessarily refer to them as often as they should. I know on my committee reports, I have everything tied to the strategies of the strategic plan that it addresses. And every year when the board does their goal setting, they're referring to the strategic plan to make sure that their goals are in line with achieving the goals that are set forth in the strategic plan. This just outlines some of the roles. The consultant that we hired is the same consultant who developed our strategic plan with us, or facilitated the development of it 5 years ago. The internal coordinator. We have a steering committee which is made up of approximately 25 people representing the different groups that I mentioned before. And ultimately, after the steering committee is done with their piece of the plan, we will form action teams. Where there will be an action team formed for each strategy in the plan, where I will be soliciting additional help. And those they could be some people on the steering committee, but there will be a lot of people that aren't on the steering committee. So this is just a little kind of pictorial representation from how we go from the strategic plan to what is talked about at the Board of Education meetings. So we have the steering committee on the left, which develops the mission, the goals, and the strategies for the plan, and that is occurring right now in October and November. Then we have the action teams, where they take each of the strategies that the steering committee came up with, and they're going to develop action plans for achieving those strategies. So now we have this whole finished plan, and the board then takes that plan, and utilizing that plan, they will develop their goals for the next 5 years. And from those board goals, we now develop action items for each of those goals and what we're going to do each year in order to achieve those goals. And from there, that's how the board committees are run, is that the agenda items for the committees have to do with those action items and how we're going to achieve those goals. So there really is a nice flow, and it really is kept at the center of what we do.
Just if you go back to that a second.
Yep.
So just for everyone here, as a reminder for all of us on the board, when we do our annual goals every year, they become much easier and clearer to set, because what we really start with is the plan itself, the 5-year plan. That's already been, you spend a year going through it. It's easy to look at it and say, what are we going to focus on this year out of whatever the myriad of things we can focus on. I think the biggest challenge, the greatest challenge that any Board of Ed has to work through, and anywhere you go, I think, any form of government, is the endless myriad of diversions and distractions about everything, anything away from the goal, what the goals you set. So, for example, Liz is just up here talking about education, which is a good thing. We do that on purpose to force you to come up here, because if we didn't do those sorts of things, it'd be very easy to go a whole year and talk about everything under the sun except education. When it's the Board of Education, it's not the Board of fix something, right? That committee structure, and this is one of the things that Mr. Forte and the administrative team here are trying to tighten up a bit, forces the board, and the public should always feel that they can hold the board accountable to this, forces the board to address their governance role in the context of what are the stated goals for the district. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll get, again, constant diversions. You'll get the issue du jour, the proverbial hole of the football field, for example, and that will consume every waking hour of meeting time away from anything else that we're working on. That's never going to make any progress on it.
This just outlines the timeline a little bit. One piece that I left off of here is in between the steering committee doing their work on the mission and the goals and the strategies, and the action teams being formed and developing plans to achieve those strategies, there will be opportunity for public feedback. And we have created a tab on the website for the strategic plan. There isn't too much up there yet because we're just in the beginning stages, but there is a little description and a few references for you to take a look at. But there will be, we're debating exactly how we're going to do the feedback, but it will probably be some combination of you being able to, of us posting things online and making it sort of a blog where you can comment, and possibly also doing some kind of public feedback session at night where you can come and we'll share what is done and get public feedback, because it really is something that everyone should have ownership of. So that will be more to come on that. So this is just a snapshot of our current strategic plan, and just to illustrate what I had just spoken about, we have our strategic plan, and from there we form our annual goals, committee agendas, and quarterly reviews, which as you know, those of you who've been coming to the board meetings know that I come periodically and give a curriculum update. There's also given to the board buildings and grounds updates, and anything else that is outlined in there. What I did was I took last year's example, because I actually have results from last year, since it was year 4 of the strategic plan. These were the district goals for last year. The first one being execute year 4 of the strategic plan. The second one is expand use of data to drive instructional and curricular decisions and improve curricular articulation. And those 2 specifically apply to me, and those tie directly back to several of the strategies in the strategic plan. So I just have 2 slides up here to kind of show you what we do. So the first strategy in the strategic plan has to do with developing a coherent K-12 curriculum along with assessments. And so these are the action items that we completed towards that particular strategy and towards the results outlined in that strategy.
Yes. These are examples from last year.
From last year, yep. So over the summer, scope and sequence documents that were developed, posted online. We created a whole structure of revised meeting schedules to allow for collaboration and articulation. So those are some of the things that we did towards that particular strategy. The second strategy has to do with co-curricular and citizenship. The exact strategies will view in students through curricular and co-curricular programs traits of character, service, citizenship, and social awareness. So some of the things last year that were done towards that end is a partnership with VMAC for different programs. Obviously, HIV was a big focus last year. The peer leadership program at the high school has been expanded and revised a little bit to incorporate more peer-to-peer interaction. So we really make sure that we remain very conscious of what we're doing or not doing towards these strategies. And if we, can't come up with any action items for a particular strategy, then we realize, okay, we need to shift our focus because we haven't addressed this. So another piece, obviously, of the plan are the goals, and that is, those are one of the first things that the steering committee will be coming up with after the mission. And what we also do every year is give a little update on each goal. And the first goal has to do with academics and curriculum, and in here are just listed some measures of how we do measure if we're meeting that goal. So we look at our college and workplace readiness. Over 90% of our student body goes on to post-secondary education. Obviously, our AP involvement, participation, and results have improved, and we're also starting to look at our in-house benchmark assessments and track performance on those. So, and without going through each of the other goals, this is actually still goal number 1, because obviously we do a lot towards academics. Goal 2 is the one that has to do with character, service, and citizenship. We've aligned our code of conduct, K-12, so that we have consistent expectations. We're tracking the number of students involved in curricular and co-curricular activities, and we have 80+% at the high school, which is pretty impressive. Number 3, professional teaching standards, and that, again, I get to actually be very involved with that piece in terms of our professional development. Obviously, the Understanding by Design initiative was a huge initiative for us over the past several years. We're starting to track specific teacher assessments, and we're involved with the North Essex Professional Development Consortium. We've really expanded our in-house professional development offerings because you can only do so much with sending people out and constantly paying to send them out to workshops. Not that that's not valuable, but what we've really done is allowed people to get expertise in different areas and then come back and turnkey it with the rest of the district. And we've really established a framework for that now, and also sharing that with our surrounding districts. And lastly, this is the one that we've probably struggled with the most, more just for budgetary constraints. This has to do with providing state-of-the-art safe learning and working environments. And I think one of the key things to note on here is the cooperative relationship with the town that's been expanded, and that's really allowed us to do many more projects than we would have been able to do in the past. And we've really, I know Mr. McDevitt has been working really hard to raise the quality of the facilities at all 6 buildings in as equitable and efficient a manner as possible with the resources that he has. And the board has allocated additional funds for buildings and grounds over the past 2 years, recognizing that this is a need. So this is, we really do constantly refer to the strategic plan, and I know the board does, in terms of setting their goals and determining their priorities. So that's just to provide you with an overview of what the process is. And like I said, check the district website. I will send, I'll have Mr. Forte include something in the Friday folder when there's something for you to go check out up there. The steering committee is meeting on November 1st and 2nd, and that is when a lot of the the next phase of work will be completed, so there will likely be documents to be published after that. Thank you very much for your time. Yes?
Well, I just want to comment on one thing.
Sure.
We're going to guide in some manner, shape, or form the direction we're going here. What I objected to the last time we put a strategic plan together is things that are beyond our ability to produce or to generate. Now, given that we should always, our reach should always extend beyond our grab, certain things are totally impossible. I objected, and I'm going to give you an example, and it may be in the facilities area, but it could extend to anything else. We can't strive for things that we know we can't achieve physically, and intellectually, monetarily, or any other way. State-of-the-art facilities. I said at the time, we can't provide state-of-the-art facilities. And we can't. We do our best. We're struggling with just to do what we need to do. But to say that we're going to provide state-of-the-art, to me, was a reach far beyond what we were capable of doing. And that's my only caution. I'm using that as an example, but it could be for any other strategy or in any other area. Just be realistic about it. Certainly the purpose of it is to improve the district, and we certainly want to do that, and want to do it to the best of our ability, but to some extent be realistic in what we're doing. And that'd be my only advice to you on that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing we actually talked about at the first meeting, we did talk about the fact that it can be modified. So that if you're in the midst of it and realize that something isn't, I know, for example, the citizenship grade you decided to not move forward with. And so, but we actually should be going back and revising the plan to reflect, what we learned after being in it for a year or so. So that's something that we talked about as well, is that it is a living document. And I think you make a very valid point.
So at that point, Joe, we did talk about that at the October 2nd meeting. I raised that point about, and I used that same example, where, to say
It's easy to pick on.
It's easy to pick on.
It is.
Look, we've achieved what we've achieved academically around the AP and the HESPA, and all the things we said we were going to go focus on by focusing a couple of people. That's different than spending $5 or $7 million on fixing bricks and cement. So I used that as the example at the meeting, and I said, to everybody that was there, we do need to be cautious, but let's be aggressive. Let's strive, shoot for the stars, and hope for the best, but we also have to be showing that there's achievability. And the other point that we made, I think Judy Ferguson made, was to reiterate to everybody there that it's still subject to approval by the board.
Yeah.
It's still a board responsibility to adopt. The board cannot abrogate its responsibility to unelected folks. Right? So we made those two points. Okay. Just, any other question?
I just wanted to comment that back to school my UBT was throughout all the classes, and I really marvel at how they forward with the science, and I was just so incredibly impressed with the passion and the level of dedication and the professionalism of the teachers. I was, making me really wish I was going to school at HB like one today. So great job.
It is nice, when I hear the teachers, when I'm walking down the hall and I actually hear the word essential question, or it's part of their vernacular, and it's one of the initiatives here that I feel confident that even if we change the entire administrative team, it's actually now systemic. I mean, that's how you know when you really have an initiative in place, is that if you could replace the people, and it really, it would remain. That's nice to hear. Thank you.
The other thing I'll point out, and we talked about this earlier in committee, so it's a little bit of getting into the committee report. The way that we're going about doing this strategic plan for the public, this is, for those of you that have been around, this is the second one we're doing. No secret, Earl Kim was a superintendent when we did the first one. He went down to Montgomery, brought in the same advisor that we had, Ms. Ferguson, and they have launched their strategic plan in Montgomery. Chuck Sampson went down to Freehold. They're 8 months in, or maybe more now.
Yeah.
Probably almost done.
They're done because there's the last day.
Using, modeling what we've done in Rome the same exact way. And then interestingly enough, we just found from October 2nd, Judy, we took from Judy, Milburn is following the same exact model that we established in Rome. Why? the woman who is the assistant superintendent
Mhm.
in Milburn, worked for Earl in Montgomery, went through this process in Montgomery and brought it into Milburn, and Milburn's doing it now. It's just, look, we're not always the brightest bulbs in the room, but it is a testament to what, the sort of things that we are doing here. When we talk about UBD, it was 2 years ago, the team in Verona was invited by Grant Wiggins, who's the godfather of UBD, right? For lack of a better term, to speak and present at his annual symposium about UBD, given his experiences and how we were able to get up off the ground and the process that we used to get the staff up to speed on. While we're tooting our own horns here, the model that we built to calculate the financial impact of teacher salary contracts over the last couple of teacher contract negotiation processes. We're still working on the contract that expired June 30th, but in working with the school board's administration, I turned over what some of our math was and how we got it. And school boards wanted to know if we would give them permission, after about a week of them going through it, if we would give them permission to use the model that we built in Verona statewide, where districts go and calculate what they can afford to pay, what goes into the math on how to achieve a successful and sustainable teachers' contract. So we said, we built it ourselves. It's just an Excel set of formulas and all, and pop it in and help you see what's going to happen next year and the year after that based on decisions you make today. And the last thing is, was it West Orange? That's you mentioned the West Essex Consortium, which we created.
Yeah, the North Essex Professional Development Consortium, yes, but West Orange and Newton School, most recently the teacher evaluation.
The evaluation said that we're working with Rich on this
Yes.
now today, come to the which goes.
Yeah, and they actually sent a couple of folks to our training last week, and because we're a little bit ahead of the game with getting moving with implementing it, so they've been contacting me. It never even occurred to me actually that they would be interested in collaborating with us because they're so big, but I think it's such a monster of an initiative for every district in New Jersey to figure out how to implement that everyone's kind of looking for who they can talk to about it.
And the reality is that there are some things that are going to be easier for us to excel at because of our size, and other things that are going to be much more difficult for us to get off the ground given our size. But those are some examples where the size, in this case, matters, and small is better and more, and we get things off the ground and it's been successful. So. All right, so you get a couple months.
Thank you.
Right, let's go into committee reports. The first committee report is on education, special education. So we met earlier today. Most of what we talked about is what Ms. Jewett went through tonight. We did also review this resolution that we got, that's an emergent resolution for professional development course, only given the timing of when the training takes place, which is the 11th and 12th. Some going into the 22nd and 26th, but it's going to be prior to our next meeting. So we have that down as an emergent resolution. Let's see. Yeah, that's, we will be receiving a resolution in the coming meeting or two around HBW advisory DVDs and movies. This is the first of two steps within HBW's. Every year the board has to approve the media they can choose. And this first cycle is going to be additive, and then the next cycle will be taking away anything that's not really appropriate or no longer needed. So that's coming up next. Talk about the teacher evaluation process. This question that's come up statewide around the actual start date for when a teacher moves from a 3-year tenure track to a 4-year tenure track. Seems to be some confusion on whether the trigger date is whether the new staff member is appointed by the board or whether the start date falls within a certain time frame. There's a little bit of confusion about that, and I'm sure the lawyers will get paid handsomely to figure that out. Full trust in Trenton to go sort out what they're going to do. And then we also met on, adjunct to that, we met on special education. And special education, we turned over to finance. There's a couple of cost savings efforts that have been going on around bus routes and busing for special education students as they come to finance wages. Added to the upside downside, using in-house drivers, including sharing some driver time with the town driver who drives a senior bus. One of the things that makes it difficult for somebody to fill these driver spots is the number of hours a day which actually work. A few hours in the morning, a few hours in the afternoon. but by combining some of them with the town, we may be able to schedule duties in such a way that it makes sense all around. Talked about some training for nursing that's happening, that's run-of-the-mill sort of stuff that we covered. But also, one thing that came up, actually came up in the strategic plan, one of the strategic plan dialogue sessions, October the 2nd, was we took, in talking about emergency procedures around the building, we had the lockdown in EHS recently and all the rest of it. One of the things that was pointed out right from the start was that we don't, we probably could do a better job of having specific. So let me back up. So when there's a student that has special needs, say a particular physical handicap, in our emergency plans, there are specific plans for that, to get that student safely accommodated in the event of an emergency or lockdown or whatever. The point that came up was, what if it's a temporary disability, broken leg, student is on crutches, it's not necessarily a permanent handicap. We need to do a better job on making sure that there's plans in place in the event of an evacuation, what happens with that student, so we can attend to that. And then the rest of it was some statistics that the rest of the board looked at around English as a second language, fairly consistent with prior years in terms of population, preschool program size, and breakdown to general ed, special ed, again, consistent with prior years, and overall special education population across the various classifications. It's about 13.5% of the student population, which is about where it's been since we put a focus on that a couple of years ago, to put controls around how IEPs are written. I think that was essentially a couple of personnel resolutions around maternity leaves that will be on the agenda for the next meeting.
I'm going to bring it up here because I don't know where else to bring it up, because I'm assuming it's an education issue, but I can bring up the Camp Burning trip. And while we've had a lot of discussion about it over the last few months, most of it being at the end of the last school year and in the summer, we haven't talked about it that I can remember, to my knowledge, this current year. Yet when the back-to-school night was held last week, or the week before, whenever it was, parents were told, given the date of the Camp Burning trip, dates of the Camp Burning trip, the location of the Camp Burning trip. And my question is why is that information being disseminated when in fact we never even talked about it here? And according to our new policy, all overnight trips have to be passed before the board for board approval. So number one is, why does one party feel we're the end of the road, and I feel we're not even at the beginning of the road when it comes to deciding about the Camp Burning trip.
I'm not sure what was said in the school day. It's a process of the planning, so it hasn't been officially approved by me or the board.
Well, they have a location, they have a date.
Well, there could be in the planning phases though, and, they have to find a new facility because the other facility wasn't up to, didn't have the capacity.
Okay. But now I wasn't there, and I am getting it secondhand, but it doesn't seem that that's the way it's presented, that this is in the planning stage, and here's what the possibility was. Here it is, this is when you're going, and this is where you're going.
Did anybody say where or when this was presented?
Yeah.
Was it
February 13th, 14th?
No, I mean, like, what part of the night did they present it? Because I was there, and John was there, and we were in the beginning part, I didn't hear anything about it, so it might have been like the classroom.
I wasn't in the classroom.
Maybe one of the teachers said, this is what's coming, this is what we plan. I can't answer that because I don't know, I wasn't there, but I know for a fact that it officially wasn't sent to us, and we officially didn't approve it.
Is there timing to this? I mean, when will it get to the board level?
Well,
If it gets to the board level, I mean, you have the right at some point to pass or fail this trip. So, I mean, I don't know, but what's the timing of it? Given the fact that they were told that the dates that they're looking at are now in the middle of February, what's the timing of it in terms of the process?
Well, I I would like to have it approved by the board the latest November. So it'll come through the committee, it'll go through either education or recreation.
Well, that's another point. I'm bringing up under education, and I'm assuming it's an educational trip. Now, I know co-curricular items are now going to be passed through the athletics committee, but I don't look upon this as a co-curricular.
This is more of an academic trip. So we'll put it through the education committee,
Okay.
I believe, correct?
Can you do it either way? It's fine.
I mean, it's, yeah, either one, it'll come through one of the committees. We'll discuss
It's
the
gonna come
committee.
through, it should come through like any other superintendent recommendation from committee, so through the initial questions and answers about it, and then it gets presented to the board, and of course the resolution will second. Given the timing of it, we could discuss it at the first meeting in November, and then if there's a resolution, we can go. This is meeting. The next committee is Community Resources, which also met, and that meeting was to review the strategic plan presentation that was due for Buildings and Grounds.
Yes, the Buildings and Grounds Committee did meet, and I sat in due to Mr. Elliott's not being able to make the meeting. I asked permission to sit on the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting in his place. And it was very, very informative. I found it extremely informative in terms of the details. Obviously, we have some things going on in the district that are ongoing problems. One of the main issues is the athletic field. And the Solido Field is out of service for the fall season and most likely will be out of season for the balance of the year, although that's just kind of a guess on my part at this point in time. However, what we did talk about was what's the next step in the process of evaluating Solido Field. And while we do have a study from a geotechnical firm which did cite some problems in the study itself, the Buildings and Grounds Committee is recommending that we go to the next step of analysis. They were suggesting actually taking some test holes or digging some test holes on the field to, number one, to bring up more samples of the soil and to dig down a little deeper into the field to see whether or not what their imaging had shown and what it really amounts to. Now, we don't have a cost on this as yet, so the instructions we're left with to come up with a cost for the second process. Given that we've been offered some help, if we're going to go out there on the field and dig, there perhaps is equipment in town, municipal equipment, that can provide us with a backhoe, and we wouldn't have to pay for the cost of a contractor coming in with a piece of equipment to dig up the soil. So the next step is to get the cost of the second step, study of analysis, and to actually come up with what is actually there. I mean, the imaging shows certain things, makes certain assumptions, and now the question is that true? And can we come up with some hard facts as to what is or isn't there? So I would say by the next meeting, that the Buildings and Grounds Committee meets, we'll have a cost on the second process. We don't think that the cost will be extensive. If I had to pick a figure now, I think we're in the neighborhood of about $10,000. Could be $2 more, could be $2 less, but that would be the second step. Once we get hard facts in terms of actual soil analysis, digging down a fair level on the field, and trying to determine if there is competitors on that field, exactly where they are and what it is. So that's going to be, will be coming to the board probably by the next meeting.
Joe, you said soil, it's not, you said soil analysis, I think, you didn't mean soil, I mean, the soil is the soil.
No, soil analysis.
But I thought the issue was the there's a shaft in the middle of the field, right? That they
Well,
found was one thing.
we
Another thing
don't
that they
know,
found-
but I mean, there may be, like I said, there may be, I don't wanna say structures, maybe objects, in the imaging that we're not sure what they are. I mean, it could be a shaft, it could be something else.
But there were two areas of the three that are classified as a void or something.
Right. But we're also, according to what we discussed at the committee meeting, is that we're actually going to do soil analysis as well.
Okay, so just help me out here, so so we're gonna do soil analysis, we'll take a core down and send it off for whatever soil analysis entails, but fundamentally, the concern is where there's a sinkhole, basically, we're at risk of a sinkhole, by the far end of the field, and then there's another shaft life or otherwise void,
Right.
a few yards away somehow from where the well that got exposed is, right? So if we take a soil sample, that's still not gonna help us with the
Well,
well, right?
the soil analysis, I think, is being driven by knowledge of where the fill came from. From what we understand, the fill came from an area in West Orange, which was an industrial area. So the question now is, we need to test the soil to make sure that there are no contaminants in the soil, as well as being structures.
Okay, fine, so this is to make sure maybe it's oil laden soil or something.
Correct.
Right, okay, that's one
That's one issue.
issue. But when we close the field down, we close it not for contaminated soil
No.
concerns, we close it for sinkhole development
Correct.
and a shaft,
Correct.
right? So what are we doing about
Well,
figuring out those, because the report that came back pointed out 3 areas that have.
that's why they're suggesting that we dig down a little further than just scratching the surface to see what we come up
Oh,
with.
so it is both things, then
It's both things.
okay.
I mean, the first one is really a cautionary kind of speculation. We're doing a lot of speculating here as to shafts being there, slabs of concrete with rebar in it. I mean, a lot of it is really speculation at this time. So the second part of the phase would be, let's go out there, let's dig down, let's see what we find. As well as, let's test the soil, given the fact that it came from an industrial area, let's make sure that there are no contaminants in the soil. So I think that that's what the next one is. We've speculated that these things are here, we've seen some imaging, let's find out what the image actually is. And
So the next step is to get the estimate of how much work that is, the cost, and
That's correct.
determine if we can do it, and if we can do it, when we would do it, and when to start.
That's correct. That's correct. All right. Beyond that, as far as resolutions go, there's a resolution to add a substitute custodian. But there's also, most likely will be a resolution on the recommendation of a new architect of record. We did go through some interviews from firms that were interested in becoming the architect of record for the firm. And the committee that interviewed the respondents is ready to make a recommendation. I don't think I have a problem with naming it. It's really a joint effort between Mylon Associates and EI Associates. They came in and made a joint presentation and I wasn't part of that at the time, and maybe, what you can tell me, do you know how many actual presentations there were?
We had 3 different firms in the presentation.
Okay. But the committee is ready to make a recommendation to the board that we retain Mylon Associates, which is a local architect here in Verona, who's done work here in Verona for the borough, and we feel that because they have a familiarity with the town, it does help out in a certain regard. And EI Associates, which is a rather large firm that's done a lot of school work throughout New Jersey, they somehow got together and came in with a joint presentation, and that's the recommendation committee to go with that.
So that's just to appoint them as a architect of record. There's no, not, when we say retain them, it's we're appointing as architect of record. If we need the services of an architect, that's what we would go
That's
to. But right now,
That's right. There
we're
was,
not, there's no cost to us.
there's no cost.
Every
We
year.
would name him as architect of record, but at this point in time, there's no cost until we ask him to do so. Now, the other thing might be is that even though, let's say this, the cost for phase 2 of the field discovery, for lack of a better word, comes in at a cost too high, while we think that there's a good reason to go with that firm that did it because of their experience in the area, we could then turn that over to our architect and say, well, can you do better? So I mean, while we have not, and have no plans at this point in time to go with anything specific to them, they are an architect of record who might have to change at that time. So those are the 2 resolutions, and I think we should put the resolution on the October for this.
Sure.
Okay. We did look at the 5-year facilities plan, the long-range facilities plan, which was put together about a year and a half ago, and we've used the document extensively and looking at what our responsibilities are and what our needs are in terms of facilities. And Mr. McDevitt has gone through and he has updated it. So we do have a current document. It has, and I really think, was this part of your board report? Or part of the board report?
The long-range facility plan was,
Yeah.
plus the summary.
Okay. And we actually had color this stuff. So we do have a current document now, and we do know what our needs are, and as we've been saying for a long, our needs far exceed our ability to provide that, the remedy for everything on the list. Now, one of the things that Mr. McDevitt did do is provided a summary of the last 5 years and what we spent on budgeted maintenance and semi-routine maintenance. And I think at the last meeting I may have brought up the fact that we do budget certain funds in our budget for facilities needs. Over the course of the last 5 years, we budgeted pretty flat. Each year we budgeted $257,000 for 3 years, and then we upped it to $263,000 for the last 2 years. And each year we've exceeded that original budgeted appropriation. Over the course of 5 years, even though the budget has either been $257,000 or $263,000, the average of the 5 years we spent $321,000. So and like I said, even though we know that we're not going to get everything on this list, we have been putting more money into that area as much as we possibly can. Whether we're ever going to be able to reach the end of this list is another matter. Let me see if there's anything else on here. I think that's really about it at this point in time. Oh, the other thing, but let's take a step backward. Even though we budget about $260,000 each year, and we spent $321,000. A great portion of that, and this is not including salaries or benefits. This is strictly expenditures for supplies, equipment, and maintenance. That Mr. McDevitt did a list and came up with $140,000 of routine maintenance, which occurs on every year, as a matter of fact. These are items on this list that recur annually. And he's broken things down that things we do annually, some he suggested to do biannually or maybe even triannually. Some things that districts do every year, no matter what, we just don't seem to have a cost for it. But of the $257,000 or $260,000 that we budget and the $320,000 that we spent, $139,000 of it is something that you're going to spend from year to year on the same things over again and again. Things like boiler cleaning, asbestos surveillance, pest control, burglar alarms, custodial uniforms, bus inspection, certain amount of painting, HVAC. So about a third to 40% of the budget that we do put into each annual budget is spent on recurring things, which makes trying to fix the things that are breaking in the district much harder to do. So that's about it. Are there any questions about anything in the building grounds or where we're going with the field at this point in time?
We have Mr. McKibben doing a presentation at the first meeting in November. What's on the sheet? You can't set that as a date, or I can set it as a date. That way we kind of hit the first meeting of the year with the
I think that was my suggestion, is that we get the administrative presentations at the work session.
athletics.
Okay, there also is an athletics committee meeting tonight, and there will be probably 4 things on the agenda as resolutions, and those would be the appointment of the, because of a resignation, we need to fill the winter indoor track and spring track positions for head boys winter track, and then also spring track. There'll be a resolution for an appointment to that position next meeting. Mr. Krishna has interviewed the individual, and will be a resolution to appoint. We reviewed the winter coaches. There will be a resolution appointing the winter coaches on the next meeting. There is a recommendation for a new club, which at the middle school, and the recommendation is to go forward with it. It will not cost us any money. Apparently there is money in the extracurricular budget for this item at the middle school, and anything above the cost of the stipend to the extracurricular coordinator, any cost involved with any supplies will be covered by the VMAC will cover the cost, and it's called the Hookman Fishing Club. Apparently there's interest in, I don't know whether it's deep sea fishing or freshwater fishing, or exactly what they're fishing for.
They're going to the park.
They come to the park. We really want to fish in Verona Park? Sure of that? All right. Well, that's not too far. Okay. And they do stock it in the spring. They stock it with trout. And I do see people saying, I don't know if I could do great to eat that fish, but if that's where they're going, okay, there won't be any need for charter boats or anything like that, I guess. But there will be a recommendation to add that Hook and Fish Club. They said there's about 15 students that are interested in participating in that, and there's money available for the stipend for the coordinator, and anything else would be handled by VMAC. But that resolution will be put forward. The coaches, and also academic competitions coordinator, again, because of the resignation of one individual, there'll be a recommendation to appoint that person's replacement on the next meeting. Beyond that, we did talk about our substance abuse policy, and at the meeting, Mr. Forte had a recommendation, and his recommendation was, and I wasn't aware of this. Now, we talked about a code of conduct policy that existed in our student handbook, but we couldn't find it when we went to sources to find it in our policy book. But in looking at the Strauss-Esme update that we approved in 2010, there is a student code of conduct in there. And what his concern is basically is that we don't want two policies contradicting one another, or in contradiction with one another in terms of discipline. And his idea was to fold the substance abuse policy into the code of conduct policy. I wasn't sure, personally speaking, that I thought that was entirely a good idea, except in any portion of the substance abuse policy that dealt with discipline.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I'm not saying we should not have the policy for substance abuse. We should have it, but the discipline part, I felt it would be, neater, cleaner, to put all discipline issues in the code of conduct.
Okay. So what we said there was, well, you guys go ahead and develop the policy and bring it to us and we'll look at it. If you think that's the way to do it, then go ahead. Again, you're right, it wasn't the elimination of the drug abuse policy, it was just that any discipline that's mentioned in, or the discipline for drug abuse is referred back to the code of conduct policy. So
That's what, when we did the Strauss-Esme adoption back in 2010, we had said that we were consciously doing that. We were going to have a policy now in place that one didn't previously exist, and that we were going to align that with the handbook language once we had resolution on the ground program in those cases.
And the only other thing of significance that we talked about, well, actually, there's two things. We talked about the track and repairs that are needed for the track, maybe needed for the track within the next 12 months. And again, the recommendation there was to get our house in order. Go find, get the cost of various levels of repair for that field, from just repairing it to replacing the whole entire surface, to replacing, if we had to, we found this to be the need, replacing the surface plus the subsurface. And then determine, let's determine the cost, and let's determine what it is that we actually need to do. Do we need to replace the subsurface or not? So again, the instruction was, let's go get a cost on that. Let's talk some hard numbers about what it's going to cost us to replace that field, that track as well, within the next 12 to 24 months perhaps. And the only other thing that we talked about was the gym bleachers, and there was some discussion at some point in time that we were going to get some help with this, but now that's on hold. And I'm reluctant to even bring the subject up, but based on the reaction to the last comment I had at the last meeting concerning help from the borough on these things. But at this point in time, we're told to put everything on hold. And what I don't want to do is, I don't want to stir up a hornet's nest here, but in the last Verona Cedar Grove Times, there was an article devoted toward it, and there were some quotes from me, and I stand by those quotes. That I think that article was well written in terms of how it quoted what I said. So I don't know where we stand with this, and I'm just going to let sleeping dogs lie here at this point in time, because I don't know where we are. I thought I knew where we were, but realistically now I don't. So I'm going to leave that one alone.
So let me take a crack at clarifying. So I think you know where we are, because you and I sat in all the meetings together. So I trust it.
Well, you're right, and I thought I heard what I heard, but then now I'm told I didn't know what I heard.
So I think the issue is that simple. We've agreed with the township that we were not going to be collectively in the business of transferring money from the township to the board.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. I think the wording that you used at the last meeting, Joe, was that when are we going to get money from the town? And I think that's what.
I don't think I said when we're going to get money from the town.
So
That's what I said.
So then you are 100% remembering right what the question was at the last meeting that I had raised was to call the town, which we did. Steve and I both talked to Joe on the next day or the day after. The question that I brought up was, when does the money start to flow, meaning to the town? We've been, when Bob Couture was mayor, followed by Smikowski was mayor for 2 terms, followed by, I think it was Tina Schwartz after that, followed by Ken McKenna after that, and now Frank Sapien. So it's been 5 different folks having seats as mayor over the last 10 years or so. What we've been waiting on is the time that the pilot money, which was resolved that we were getting pilot money, we, the town of Aurora, was getting pilot money from the property up there. That was resolved when Jim Robbins was on the council and Bob Couture was mayor. From that time till last year, it was still in the plan, but money was not coming, I use the term flow, it was not flowing to the town coffers from the pilot. When we met, and Joe and I met with the township in the fall of last year and the spring of last year, and quite frankly, when we had a public meeting, we did talk about that the most prudent thing to do with respect to the Board of Ed property was, given the community usage that we have on the properties, it made the most sense where the township felt community benefit would be gained by doing project by project improvements. And they've done that consistently over the last couple of years. Last year they did a couple, as a matter of fact, last year, Joe, you commented the Al the Old list. The Al the Old list is the Joe Martin Board of Ed list that we handed the town council and the Board of Ed at that joint meeting in the spring. It's not the Al the Old list. Al got that list from us. Unless Al the Old has like some of other folks in town, has a better way to get facts other than going to the town and to the Board of Ed, which I don't think is the case. It makes great headlines, but it's not. It's just unfortunate. It's never really based in truth. The pilot money has started to flow to the town last year. Now, I did point out at the last meeting that the first year that pilot money flows, again, to the town, is a de minimis amount of money relative to the whole. Something like $50,000 when fully loaded, the pilot will flow about $1 million a year or close to that to the town. We're in year 2, and the question I raised was, I couldn't remember whether it was this fiscal year or next fiscal year, because the town, I remember it being this year that we would, as a town, start to get the money coming in from the pilot, more than just the minimum threshold, which was about $250,000 to $300,000. That amount of money is flowing our fiscal year. So the last meeting we had in the spring, Mr. Martin did say it was going to flow this year, and again, I couldn't remember what the definition of this year was, which is what I said at the last meeting. It is this fiscal year of ours, which some of it's coming in 2013. Remember, the town budget is on the town fiscal year on a calendar basis. That was split year. And we also had the board notes the list of the sort of projects that the town has helped us with using town money. Now, whether it's distinctly pilot money or other town revenue money, that's the council and Joe Martin's business. I've expended all my patience to explain that. I'm not going to spend any more time and energy on it, to be honest with you. But the list is the list. It is, when new cement and new bleachers for the football field show up, and a backhoe shows up, to Joe's point, we've been pretty open about that. We stand behind it. And if anybody's got a question, happy to answer questions about it. But that's where we're at. Now, I did speak to Joe and to Mayor Sapienza, and suggested that since the last time we met was the fall and then the spring, we want to have another meeting. And that's why I was saying, if we can get Paul McDivitt's presentation at the beginning of November, we need to have that meeting ourselves before we walk into a town meeting. I think it should be you and I again, or we'll decide with the rest of the board here at the next meeting if there's different volunteers that want to sit in on that, and then go through Paul's whole perspective on what's still on the list, what we've achieved, take stock of it, do the same thing in the spring, and then follow up with our annual meeting, which we've agreed to have every year with the council and the public, full board, full council, like we did last year. Something for a yes, I agree.
Well, I mean,
Sounds like you disagree with something I said.
well, I mean, yeah, I disagree with you saying that I said that when are we going to get the pilot money? What I said was
No,
that.
I didn't say that. I watched the tape,
All
and
right.
I'm pretty confident in whatever he said. I wouldn't worry. I put very little stock to it. Newspaper on some there, so if you did.
Well, look.
I think at the end of the day, I think the point of confusion, I think the point of confusion, Joe, was I think it was interpreted that we were expecting money to come in the form of a check or cash.
Right, and then we were, and at some point in time, we may have even thought that, and then we gave up on that, and you're right about the funding. The town has indicated to us, maybe indicated is the word I should have used in terms of an informal agreement, because we really don't have any agreement. We don't have any right to claim any pilot money, but they have indicated that they are willing to help us. We've been,
Well, I think they, I'm trying to cut you, I think they've indicated that direction, right? Like, when we had it's a great story, because there's no better disinfectant than sunlight, but, you know, when the well opened up, within 2 hours, the town had men here,
right,
you know, to help us remediate.
and
The definition of sharing service.
You're right to the extent that, you know, the help can come in various forms, and it's up to the Borough Council to decide, if they decide to help us, where the money comes from. We don't, that's not an issue with us. If they're willing to help us, we'll take it, we're willing to take it. But there have been discussions at some point in time about the use of pilot money, to the point that we even discussed it with bond counsel to look at the legality of that. Now,
That was last.
all right, so, I mean, to say that, you know, that's never been discussed and never been discussed at any level, I think is a little
Talk about some of the,
selective amnesia in as far as that's concerned.
talk about some of the folks on the council. So.
Right, okay. Now, again, if
This has been
they're
going on
willing to
since,
help us, they can, and they all agreed to do that. The council agrees by whatever majority there is to do that. We don't care where the money comes from. Doesn't matter to us. It is a gift to us that we will gladly accept and we deeply appreciate if that's what they want to do. And that's the point I would like to make at this point in time. If they want to help us, we'll avail of that.
I think you're being overly considerate of this look of amnesia. The people that we're talking about sat in the public meeting that you and I sat in and got handed a piece of paper that you and I got that had all the work in it. And if you can't remember that, and when it's written in black and white, then you can't remember it.
So be it. Anyway,
Want to do finance?
I mean, we certainly don't want to build any walls between us and the town council in that regard, and
I spoke to
unless they help us.
Frank Sapienza. When the question was posed to him, he told me that it was posed in the context of when are you sending money to
Yeah,
people? And he said that's not what we agreed to do.
That's right, and you're absolutely right about that. No question.
Anyway, again, we spent more time as usual on this than we did on academics, so let's go to finance.
Okay, finance, again, we did have a committee meeting tonight. This will be the briefest report. We do have, we'll have a resolution on a contract for advertising solicitation services, which will not cost the district any money. There's no upfront money. It's a company that that Mr. Forte, right.
It's MEI, it's a advertising agency, and they will help us with this process without putting out any money first. Okay?
Do you still get to vote on particular ads that they propose? I know they
Yes.
were getting share.
Yes,
Okay, and then we'll just look at what they come up with.
yes. We have a right of refusal on any ad.
Yeah, I have to approve anything that they put in there.
Yes.
It has to fit the guidelines of the law.
Right, and the
Vote on
contract,
each,
Is the board going to vote on
vote
those
on
ads?
each,
I
each
don't
person
know.
that comes on.
If you,
So that was my concern. I'd love to say yes, let's say yes.
Okay.
To do it, but then.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yes.
I will definitely put it out to
That's okay?
whether or not it's gonna be on a resolution, that's a different issue. I'm going to show you what's going on first.
Well, is this, oh, no, sorry, we can get back, let's make this simple. Is this the contract that was in the past?
Yes.
Was it a different company?
And there's no upfront.
It says consistent consultant.
He goes, it's
But
MEI.
I'm asking, by voting for this
If
and
this
saying
Marcus-
okay,
but
am I
if-
saying okay to any as
So in the contract,
reflects?
on the third paragraph down, it says, Warren Public Schools reserves the right to determine which advertisements are acceptable to the Warren Public Schools.
Okay, so it's the board
Well, I don't see the reason why it can't be in the form of resolution. You have a list,
Could
here's,
be the superintendent that would determine whether there's any
So
exception.
we won't be voting after this.
No, it's
I'll
not a-
only vote
no,
to
it's-
approve this,
no,
but I
we-
don't get to vote on what I say.
Correct. And legally, you wouldn't, that's, so for example, the board, there's legal, there's a boundary on where the board can vote on a resolution, where a resolution is not in scope.
well, I'm gonna take her side on this. I don't see any reason why the advertiser's list can't be put before the court.
We could do that as an option, it's not required. So the contract, but I think that is, that's up to us to decide, because the contract that the firm, the company is signing says we have the right to determine which advertisements are accepted. Now, how we decide that is up to us. If you want to have a resolution, that's fine. We have a
I want to
resolution.
support it because I know he's trying to create
I think
funds,
we're
but I don't
But the
want
last thing we want is
any
some,
ability to say, I don't want monster beverage, or I don't want, right? You want to, I mean, not that you would go with that, but let's say we have disagreement going forward, you want Red Bull, and I disagree with it. So that's, I'm just trying to retain for the board.
I think
the
we're all for,
ability
I
to
think
review that.
the entire board, all three of us are for
Reviewing the ads.
the list of ads. If you want to see the actual ads themselves?
No,
when
but
you say
the
review the ads,
advertisers, because I
So
think
you're
some
talking
are
about the company,
appropriate,
not
some
the
are.
actual thing.
Not the actual ads themselves.
I don't care, but let's say, I'm trying to think of, what would be something I'd do against.
Well, let's use Red Bull as an example.
Red Bull, I mean,
That's a
some
good
people think
example.
it's a sports drink.
And I think we should.
Some parents might not want to approve that, so
I
then we
think-
weigh in against that, but if it's orange juice, okay, but no Red
I
Bull.
think, mind you, look, I think we could decide that, when there's five of us here, I understand, personally, I understand what you guys are saying, and
I don't want to vote no, you know,
To-
but
to
if
a
I
degree,
can't vote yes, then I.
Well, one thing we could do is pass a policy, have a policy that governs
Okay.
this.
We
As
won't
a matter of
vote
fact, I
unreasonably,
think-
but
as a
just
matter of fact,
love
we're
to
working-
see what's coming up. I mean, you don't want to show what's going on, then we'll see an ad for,
I mean, I don't know what the big deal is about approving the list of advertisers. Here's a list of 5 advertisers we like. If you don't like one, you vote no.
Okay.
If you do like them,
I think the reason why I'm hesitant about that, Joe, is, so I understand the nobility of the purpose of doing it, I just question whether it's in the purview of the board to,
we pick books and movies and vote
Oh,
on.
we do. I mean, we vote on policies, we vote on textbooks, we vote on movies that are shown in classrooms. We vote on them, whether, we generally take the recommendation of the administration, whether it's still required to be voted on.
Well, what do you think about having a district policy that would have guidelines?
You know, policy,
I just don't want to lose the whole review process.
policy is going to be a lot of verbiage to describe something as opposed to, here it is. I mean, you know, is it this or is it that? I mean,
Do you think Starbucks is appropriate, so people might have them back? Some people might listen to it, or McDonald's, do you think that's appropriate? I would say.
There's gonna probably be somebody that thinks everything's appropriate.
well,
Well,
you
the
know,
board.
that's why you have 5 people on the board.
I mean,
If 3 of them
we
like it,
monitor what
then
they
you
eat
put it on.
criteria,
Three
so
of them.
why?
Remember, we're all talking about this just in names, like, in other words, if I put a number to the name, that also has to have some weight too. In other words, if I- I know.
And, you know, I understand you need the money.
I think some things are inappropriate too.
I'm sorry?
I think some things are
I
inappropriate
mean,
too.
orange juice good, Red Bull not so good, you know?
Well,
You're obviously.
if you want to
you're
put-
obviously can't do it, but I
putting
was
it
trying
to a
think
vote,
of-
let's do
You know,
that.
this is something new and it's coming down, like, I think it's something of the future. And anytime you have something like this, something new that's a little outside the box, you're gonna have these bumps in the roads and you're gonna have disagreements, that's okay. And I have no problem with providing you with a list. The only thing I do have a problem with is that if that, because of the process, if we lose out on something because of the process, that's my concern.
Oh.
I don't wanna lose out on something.
What are we gonna lose out
I don't know.
on? I mean, are they gonna tell you, well, if I don't put this billboard up there in 3 days, I'll take it, I'll go see the growth, and I mean, I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
No, but I don't wanna lose out on money because of the time.
I
In other words,
guess 4 years from now, I don't want an ad for whatever, because today I voted that this is okay. You see what I mean? I'm saying that it needs
Sure.
to be oversight. All right. not trying to mire in the
I
process.
understand.
You know what I mean? I'm just thinking for the future. Just by agreeing to this contract, I'm not giving up my responsibility.
I would hate to lose an opportunity because it has to be put off for 6 weeks or something. So maybe if there's something that's time sensitive, I can shoot it out as an email and get a poll. Something like that. If that's, but we don't put resolutions on that haven't come from committee. And something like this obviously is, you know, a hot button issue. It should come through the
I mean,
committee.
we're talking ads that would be 30, 40, 50,000, maybe 100,000. And then they'll take 30% or 50%, maybe the rest.
Well, I mean, that would be the total. That's a goal for the future.
So it's not gonna
We're
break
trying
our
to get this
budget
off the
for
ground.
that this money, so I just think, it's a priority, maybe on the brand. Are we voting on it tonight?
No.
Okay. Yeah, but that's, maybe so it'll be the next.
Right.
And remember, the only two things in the contract have to do with the website and the Friday folder email. That's all the advertising is right now.
Oh, you just, right now it's for that.
It's for the website and the Friday folder email. There's nothing about
No billboards.
putting on a billboard and not only that, like, we have policies about some of the other stuff already, about naming rights and things like that, so. Okay?
Okay. All right, further along in Finance Committee, we talked about needing to spend about $5,000 with Strauss Esme to cover some policies that are not in our book. The number I was given was about a little over 100 policies or regulations that realistically should be part of our policy book that aren't there. And it would cost about $5,000 for Strauss Esme to provide those policies for us. And the recommendation from the committee is to spend that money to have these policies put in the policy book. We looked at, and the only other big thing is the amount of legal expenses that we've been incurring for a variety of reasons, student issues, special education, and lawsuits. And is there a better way to handle these bills? Is there a more economical way to handle our legal needs? And there's an ongoing discussion on that. We don't have a recommendation, but we're looking into it because and I guess the impetus for that came about through the audit. And there are certain statewide averages of how districts our size, how much money they spend on legal expenses. And it was brought to our attention by auditors that we should look into it. And we will, I don't know if there's a remedy to it, but we'll look into it and see if there's a more economical way to handle our legal bills.
Joe, we put the legal bills comparison from the state data in the fact book.
Okay.
So it's in there, you can see how.
Is it there?
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
One of the, we talked about this on and off over the years, and one of the things I think we really ought to do is get the attorney, the law firm, and right now we pay a, what's our retainer a year? There's a $400 a month retainer, right? So that's about $50,000. No, it's about $5,000 a year, right? I don't think, I remember in the last 10 years ever having a legal total spend in the year of under $50,000. Right? So it strikes me as, and this, I know we've said this before, but I really do think we ought to approach the attorney about this. We pay a very small retainer and then a la carte after that. And what we probably ought to do is just pay a larger retainer that still gives us some bandwidth in return for lowering of rates.
Yeah, well, John, we talked about that. We talked about it at the meeting, and we didn't feel that there was going to be any savings to do that. We're on billable hours, and you know, we're on our retainer of $400 is about 3 billable hours. So as soon as we surpass 3 billable hours, we're going to be charged. Now, if that retainer goes from $400 to $2,000, it's still the same amount of billable hours. And we don't see how that in itself is going to save money by increasing the retainer. What we're going to do is guarantee that instead of $400 a month, they may get $1,000 a month, or they may get $2,000 a month. But the billable hours are still there. It's not that they forget about the first 3 billable hours, that 3 billable hours that we get for nothing, and that 3 billable hours is gonna become 10 unbillable hours.
I think that makes for a lower rate.
I don't think it will.
Well said, yeah,
I
think you
mean,
said
we
it
don't
was
see why the
$5 an
retainer,
hour or something.
increasing the retainer is going to reduce the legal cost. A billable hour is a billable hour, whether it's in the retainer or outside the retainer. And we had a pretty lengthy discussion on that. And Ms. Blah, who's an attorney, says it's her experience that, increasing the retainer is not going to dramatically affect the legal bill.
What do you mean?
Maybe they're gonna lower their hourly rate.
It's not,
Do
it's
you mean
not.
increase the whole
It's not.
or like the monthly fee? Like in other words, give them X number of dollars up front instead of like $400 a month, say give them $30,000 for a year. Something like that.
But-
I think you said give them a guarantee.
Or a higher number.
Guarantee you
of-
$30,000 a year, but stop billings.
And lower the rest of the rates. That's the trick,
There you go.
right? Now, if you,
God bless you if you can do that.
well, look, I think at this point, in the absence of any other
right, well-
recommendation, other than there's nothing we can do, I'm just offering a recommendation.
All right, well, now,
And the second thing I would say is, when last time I looked at these bills, we had a large spend in the last over the course of the last 4.5 years or so, that was attributed to Mr. Forte's new in the seat and using a lot of attorney time in consultation of all kinds of various things that you're experiencing the first time as superintendent. Ms. Jewett went through that for about 8 months last year when she took the reins between Chuck Sampson leaving and you starting. And then a year prior to that was Chuck's first year here, which is when he was working 4 hours a lot. Cheryl really pointed it out that with the new superintendent's cycle of the seats, given the environment that we operate in, we will run a lot of hours. And perhaps another thing to do is to talk about what the attorney is actually billing us for. So if there are questions around what normally are run-of-the-mill sort of, like we had an issue in confidential that we talked about tonight involving a particular person on the staff and a placement within buildings, and one of the questions there was, just double check that with Mike. If that's the sort of stuff that he's billing for, with the new superintendent, you're gonna have more of those than not. And my suggestion is, if you get Mike in and say, Mike, what we need to do is we need to resolve the high spend and bring the number down. Clearly, the easiest thing to do is, deal with less legal issues. But the trajectory of the state is going the complete opposite direction, especially in special education, where we're the only state in the country that has a burden of proof on the accused, not the accuser in the case of special education disputes. And we've said years ago, that's going to cause our cost to go through the roof. Now, some districts that are bigger than us, larger than us, have a special education attorney on staff. We could go that route. My guess is, if we hire a person on staff, it would be a full-time position with benefits. It's probably going to be around the amount of money that we're spending today, except that we have a person in. So right now, we're saying, one of the ideas was bring a person in staff and spend, I don't know, $85,000 a year, I'm just making the number up, or go the billable rate with Michael and spend about that on a whole series of things. We've got a farm of attorneys that can handle every discipline that we seem to need, right? So, but again, I think I'll stand down, and when we get recommendations, we'll deal with it.
well,
One thing that we did do was we negotiated a rate, a different rate for special ed and other items.
No, we got him to agree to that, that's
Right,
somehow, right?
we did.
I'm not sure what pistol we used, but he agreed, right?
well, I mean, go back to your point. Now, if since we've been on board, and now going on 9 years, that we've never seen anything lower than $50,000.
I can't remember ever spending less.
If we can get them to increase the retainer and lower the rate, saying, look,
That's
if we're guarantee you $50,000, and they guarantee you $4,000 a month or something like that, but you have to lower the rate, and it has to, has to produce some savings to us. I mean, we can try. I mean, I don't know whether it works or not. I don't know.
I brought that up with Mike.
What did he say?
He's not interested in the increased retainer. He went with his other thing. What happened was,
Varying rate.
we paid $145 an hour for everything. But we realized that the majority of the calls are special ed related. So we negotiated a different rate for special ed. He's now accepting $140 an hour for special ed, but the rate for the other things went to $150. So we're going to see, this is the deal that he made was this is our attorney, so if we decide we have to go a different route, he's not interested in the increase is retained.
The 7 hours out of every 10 hours is at a lower rate, and the 3 hours are at a higher rate. That's,
It's not gonna be necessary.
you're gonna save a few dollars, but again, in a world where the retain, in a world where we budget $400 a month and spend $4,000 a month every year,
I mean, there is the other option we were looking at, is going with an in-house counsel, a shared in-house counsel with another district, where we get somebody for about 20, say half of a full-time person. And the advantage to that is now you have somebody working in the district for, say 80 hours a month, that actually, instead of being a phone call away, it's actually a cost.
But the topic is not the hours, the topic is the cost. So if the cost is about the same as what we're paying today, and I'm down to one disciplinable attorney, I mean, look, the thing with the attorneys, in my view, is this: the attorney gives you advice, advocacy, or however else you want to describe it. A bad decision by the attorney can cost you a couple $100,000 in losses or behavior that you're forced to go and do that otherwise maybe you have to do. And just I hate for us to be penny wise and not foolish.
Well, from looking at it a little bit, I spent a little bit of time on this and spoke to some districts that have in-house counsel, big districts though. So like a district like West Orange and Bloomfield, they have it. And the going rate was around $140,000
For a full-time person.
for a full-time.
So if you get a person half-time, that's 7.
Right.
Did you feel that
We
they
spend
had better
50
outcomes?
We're spending,
40 to 60.
well, right now, we're spending about 110 or so.
Well, it's in which year, this current.
The last year, the last 2 years, right, it's been over 100,000
Oh,
for
yeah.
2 years.
But Steve, how about the outcomes? Did you feel that by having an in-house counsel, maybe there's better outcomes because it's more, you're not rushed, you have more interaction and more prophylactic measures where the lawyers are guiding you in advance? I mean,
There was a lot of
that's the
advantages.
easier question. If you have better outcomes,
Right.
There's advantages and there's
then
disadvantages.
I'm not so.
But the part is, if we're spending 120,000 now, right, just say for example, 120, and we get somebody for 70 to work part-time for us to share with another district, we still have a pool of 50 that if we do need to hire another attorney for something, we can. If we don't, then we save. And the fact that the person's actually an employee, some of the districts make that person in charge of policy and in charge of personnel. So there's advantages to it. I mean, it's definitely something to look into. Again, it's a little outside the box. It's not the norm. I mean, there's going to be bumps in the road if we do it. But I'm interested in looking into it. When you partner with another district and you do it, it slows the process down a little bit because they have to have their buy-in. We have to have our buy-in. We have to decide on it. But I have discussed this with a few different superintendents.
I'm going to sit here a couple of days, so the time being, because
Sure.
we're usually on 2 days off.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Superintendent report? Yes.
Okay, so you went over the advertising, that's good. Strauss Esme, you went over, that's great. I looked into joining the Chamber of Commerce and the Lions in the town to try to, get this whole idea of partnership with businesses and hopefully open up a different venue for them to advertise. So again, a little bit outside the box, not the norm to advertise on a public facility, in a public facility on a public property, but I think again, it's going to come down, it's going to be more popular in the future.
You also have a seat, de facto seat for the environmental.
Yes. So I reached out to both of them. I did hand you the CUSAC SOA, which is the statement of assurance that Mr. Quattrochi signed. This will be sent in, you have a copy of it.
We have to approve that. I mean,
Yeah, well, but this won't be approved until, but it's on the next,
on the next.
yeah, it's on the October 30th. But I wanted to give you everybody a copy. This is the signed copy, once it's approved, it'll be sent in. Next thing was, we worked on the district security plan, and that may need to be approved. As of right now, there's not a lot of guidance on this, so I might put it on for approval anyway, if we want to. One of the things we were talking about a little bit in the private session I wanted to bring up was the importance, believe it or not, even in a small town like Berlin where the vast majority of our kids do graduate high school, We do have a few kids who don't, here and there. And I talked a little about this with the high school principal and the director of guidance about giving some statistics to people who are on the fence and considering that. One of them was that the life expectancy rate for a high school dropout is actually at least 7 years less than a high school graduate. That unemployment goes from 14.1 without a high school diploma to 9.4. And you can expect your salary to be $187 per week less for your life with not graduating high school. Now, again, these are all statistics that are national statistics, and I know there's ones that don't fit them all. But I wanted to make sure that we had that info out there, and also saying it on the TV that these are important things. Another thing we did was on December 8th, we're going to have the AP Institute at Verona High School. I had a little connection with College Board. We had this AP Institute last year in Heights when I was the principal, and so I shot them an email to see if we could steal it from them, and we're going to have the AP Institute here. So there's an advantage of it. Is that the advantage to it is that it's in our building. Our teachers will be able to go for free, and we open it up to everybody from northern New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. They all come to our school on a Saturday. Our teachers get to go to free, and these are the AP workshops that we pay a pretty big price to go to. So I think this is a great opportunity for our teachers. And we did start this new teacher mentor program. We had several new teachers this year that are on tenure track and they need to be mentored. So we started a new program that the mentors, the teachers that are going to mentor, actually meet a few times with the administrative team to go over the kinds of things that they should be talking about with the mentors. I think that was a positive thing. That came through Dr. Banja and Ms. June. I believe that's it for my report.
Any questions? Let's do the resolutions. We have the 5 of them.
Yeah, we have, that's exactly what I did. Those 2 addendums I included in the letter, so. Resolved that the board approve resolutions number 1 through 5.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Ms. Polino, seconded by Ms. Dubois. Any questions on this? Let's go on.
Mr. Watt? Mr. Polino?
Yes.
Mr. Pacheco?
Okay. We'll open up to public comment or questions.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Crystal Pachowski, and I'm here to update the board on our full-day kindergarten movement that we've been working very hard on all throughout Verona. The first thing I'd like to share with the board are our flyers that we've been giving out to businesses and distributing on the web through our Facebook page. I'm also going to give you guys a copy of just what I briefly want to go over. So you can each keep a copy of that. Okay, so we're kind of coming full circle now. Me and my fellow full-day advocates came here about a year ago. We asked the board for help in getting a full-day kindergarten for our children. You guys said you had no money, and you left it up to us, and you were very nice in helping us brainstorm and coming up with ways to obtain money. And so we got on the ballot. We're going to be on the ballot on November 6th. And what we've been doing is we have been spreading our message throughout the past year. We have an active Facebook page, which has allowed us to join all 4 elementary schools. I talk to people at all of the different sites. I know that the lawn signs that we have distributed throughout town are in every single section of town. So when you see the map, you can actually see that we're not just in one little section of Verona. And that was kind of a, you know, some people were saying that in the beginning, that we were only in one section, but that's not the case. I know it because me and two other ladies, we personally delivered those signs. It's been a huge effort. Many hours of time has gone into this, but the town people of Verona, the businesses, they have been very supportive of us. What I do want to just quickly go through are 5 points that continually come up when I talk to our critics about why a full day kindergarten is so important. And I have talked to a lot of people. People who are involved in this with me, we have spoken to many people. So I'm a peaceful person. I'm not, I don't like conflict, but I do firmly believe in a full day kindergarten. I believe that we are, you know, a little bit competitive too, and all of our surrounding towns do not have a full day kindergarten, and I don't see why Verona shouldn't. You know, it's for our home. I bought in Verona for the school system, and I know that many other people who come here buy for the school system as well. So here are the 5 arguable points that I want to just counter. Number 1, it's only an extra 1.5 hours, and here's what we will say to that. A full day K curriculum would account for an extra 2 hours and 15 minutes per day. This time includes socialization during lunchtime, as well as important academic instruction, which is necessary under the strict core curriculum standards of which NJ, New Jersey, is a part of. Verona is a part of that, okay? Essentially what is happening in 2012 is that kindergarten is 1st grade. So people, you know, say, well, I only had a half-day kindergarten, but in 2012, the way that the curriculum is laid out is that kindergarten is really 1st grade. Number 2, kids should have more playtime. And here's what we're going to say to that. Most kindergarten-age kids are already used to a structured full-day academic schedule since they attended full-time preschool. K-age children thrive on structure and need it for their development. Number 3, I had a half day and I turned out just fine. And here's what I want to say to that. The current year is 2012, and while half-day programs work successfully in times past, they do not in today's modern culture. Most children have already been going to full-time preschool programs, and the current academic curriculum is based off of a full-day schedule. And you can talk to any teacher, and they will tell you that it's a lot of information in the time that they've been given. It is unfair for Verona to have a half-day program, whereas nearly all of our neighboring towns have benefited from a full-day K for many years. Point number 4, why should my tax money go towards paying for parents' babysitting costs? And here's what we would like to say to that. A full-day K curriculum would not entail babysitting. The additional money would be used to incorporate essential additional academic instruction that is necessary for today's standard kindergarten program. And point number 5, I don't want my taxes to go up. And here's what we'd like to tell you about that. If you vote yes, taxes will only go up $25 per residence. The cost equals a half or quarter tank of gas, depending on whatever kind of car you drive, the cost of 2 movie tickets and a popcorn, or 2 pizzas. All of these things don't have nearly the same long-lasting benefits on our children, town, and education system. The cost for a full-day kindergarten is priceless. And that's what I'd like to share. I would like to thank you personally, Mr. Quattrochi, for your support. And all of the board. We wouldn't be on the ballot November 6th if it wasn't for all of you. We're excited. We have definitely spread our message, and we are continuing to do so. We feel that, you know, this could be the time where we really help our children in kindergarten. It's important. Kindergarten is important. It really is. It's not, it is the foundation for our children, the foundation, and they deserve a full day.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Lisa Pesky, totally appreciate everything Crystal was saying, but I am going to say publicly, completely disagree on all 5 of your points. In the state of New Jersey, if you look on the State Department of Education website, kindergarten isn't even mandated by law in New Jersey. It's mandated in towns of low income with less educational opportunities, and those are the towns that want it. I can appreciate that some people do have their children in full-day preschool programs, and it is kind of stepping back to go to half a day, but there's also people who don't have their children in there. There are opportunities through Catholic school, private school, different daycare centers that offer full-day kindergarten programs, so it's out there and available to you, but at your own cost. I don't think that there's any studies, and I've read many, many studies on kindergarten, and there are benefits to it, but they don't persist over time. Most of the studies show that the academic benefits don't persist beyond first or second grade. So there really isn't a huge impact on that. And to be honest, I don't know. It does, you use the term that it's kind of a long-term babysitting thing. I don't want to say that, that's like a little harsh, but in the the 2¼ hours you said, it would be extended, and some of that is lunchtime, it's recess, it's playtime. I don't find that totally necessary. There's so many things that the board addressed tonight that money is so badly needed for. I understand it's 2012, and I understand that things are changing. I don't feel that this is the right time for it. Thank you.
I have a few other things besides kindergarten, that leads kindergarten first. I am not Michelle Bernardino, 16 Martha Center, and I do not stand here being pro or against for full-day kindergarten. I only bring up 2 points. One being that we're discussing full-day kindergarten as being dismissed at 2:45. Lisa and Crystal both discussed this extra 1½ hours of time plus lunch and recess. But I haven't heard what's happening in that extra time from anybody. Is the 4-hour curriculum currently happening, being extended over a full day, or is more curriculum going to be added? Because for me, as a parent, as a voter, that's an important point. Not just that my child is getting out at 2:45, it's what are we doing? Because I might think those 4 hours are too rigorous, and I want it spread out. Somebody else might feel like they're missing something, and they want more put in. So you may get full-day kindergarten, but you still might not get what you want. So just keep that in mind. I guess the other point I just wanted to make is our SEAs. For all 6 schools, and VMAC and VFE, give a lot of money back to the schools. And I think the Board of Ed would attest to that, as far as field trips and cultural events and chairs and desks and smart boards and everything. And I'm afraid that with the way the economy is, that's all taxpayer money. It's all fundraising, it's all donations. With our economy and that cost going down, the schools may not have everything we're used to having. And now we have another budget item that we need to contend with that could increase. It's $25, but for year 1, that's going to constantly go up with rising salaries and healthcare costs. And I may sound like I'm against it, and I'm not. It's 2 things I think taxpayers and voters really, really need to consider when voting. So that's my kindergarten skill. I also stood here and listened to, we need a track, we need bleachers, we need new policies that's going to cost money, and someone has extra money, and we're having a fishing club. It's like, I know there's buckets, but like, can't they spill over to other things that are needed? I feel like if extra money is somewhere, use it for something that's really needed. Not to say that the fishing club isn't great, but go fishing with your buddies on Saturday morning. So that's just my point on that. And I just wanted to echo Dawn's comments about HBW back to school night. I felt exactly the same way, but it was wonderful. My last thing about Election Day coming up, and in our mission statement saying we have a safe school, I don't feel that Election Day is safe. And I know this has been a topic that's come up before,
but I don't feel that our schools should be open while voting is going on. I feel like our children are at risk. So I don't know how to change voting hours. I know some towns only vote from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. I understand for this year, it's kind of a done deal. But whether we don't have school and it's professional development day, or we try to change the voting hours so that children are not voting. That's all, thank you.
Just, Mr. Forte, comment, if he wants on the club. The curriculum for full day K, if we do it, just to take a minute to explain it. What's on the ballot is to vote on doing a half-year full day K program. So it would be the second part of the year, essentially. First part of the year would continue to be extended day like it is today, and the second part would be full. And then the plan, if it passes in November, we would implement it in January. But given the timing of the year, we would implement it with the current curriculum. The kindergarten curriculum as it stands going into September this year. At the end of the first year, through that, the winter, fall semesters, the curriculum department, Ms. Jewett and company, would restructure a curriculum going into next September. So it's proper.
As for the fishing program, it's, the expenses that were on there were the minor expenses to reimburse the person who's going to lead the program in like materials, but it's not an unbudgeted item. So it's, and I mean, you can argue back and forth whether or not it's a worthwhile program.
Oh, yeah, I didn't say it's not, I just thought it was
Right, I mean,
some
some kids
other
like
things.
fishing, I'm sure it's gonna be worthwhile for them going fishing, it's not. So I think that's my point on that. And, for the curriculum for the kindergarten, the majority of the time that our kindergarten teachers tell me that the piece that they're missing is the center time, is that independent center time that they don't have time to put in to the 4 hours. That's a very valuable part of the day in a pre-K or a kindergarten. So that's the big piece, is the center time. I know as a principal of a school that had full-day kindergarten, the center time was the afternoon. Same thing with our pre-K. We had a full-day pre-K, and a full-day pre-K had center time in the afternoon. And it used one of the 4 curriculum, one of it was called Curiosity Corner. If you look at it, it's got Montessori type ideas to it. It's not a Montessori school, but it's that kind of idea with exploration, students doing things on their own. So that's the piece that's missing right now in ours, according to what our teachers tell me. Anybody else?
Hi, Lauren Lawrence. I just wanted to respond to some of the criticisms about the full day K and some of the concerns. And I guess the first thing I want to say is that right now in New Jersey, 76% of towns have full day kindergarten. Right now in the area, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that Caldwell and Clifton are the only ones in the immediate area that don't. And
No,
I-
Clifton does.
that Clifton has it
Yes.
now? Okay, so
Yes.
Caldwell. I have a hard time believing that all of the collective intelligence that goes into the decision-making in all of those towns above 75% are somehow misguided. I think there's a reason why 76% of the towns have full-day kindergarten. I think the reasons are varied. I think it's beneficial to the children. I think realistically in 2012, that we live in a world where not everybody is growing up in a family where there are 2 working parents, but I would say certainly the majority, or at least a very large percentage are. I think this is a valid concern. I think when people are looking to purchase a house, one of the first things that comes up is about the early education system. Lots of times it's young families who are either about to have their first child or not even at that point. I remember being kind of surprised to find that we didn't have a full-day kindergarten. It just seemed almost like a relic of the past to me from all the places that I had come. I guess the last point too is that, you know, it really is true that it's $25 now and that's gonna go up, but what is that not true about? I mean, I don't think we always say, you know, this field is gonna be X, but, you know, if we have to do repairs on it in 2 years, it's gonna be X plus. I mean, that's just a given. And so I think that there are, you know, I guess what I'm saying is I'm not really hearing objections that seem to me to be anywhere near in strength to the positive aspects. And also, I'm happy, I'm sure that there has been research done. There was an enormous study, I think, in 2004 through the entire state of Kansas. We're very different than Kansas, obviously, but there are lots of studies, actually, that show all kinds of benefits, academic, intellectual, social. It is true that the benefits tend to accrue for lower income kids who need it more than anyone else, but it isn't across the board benefit. And I don't remember seeing any studies that said that there was harm involved, that somehow these kids were insecure because they were out of the house for 2 hours longer. And my understanding from speaking with people also is that what it allows the teachers to do is really take what they're already doing and doing it at a much more beneficial pace. So it's not this constant sense of looking at the watch and feeling like it's going to take 25 minutes for the kids to get their coats on. So if we're going to get through this project, you know, we better start right now. It just gives everybody the chance to do things at the pace that it should. And for me, the strongest argument is just that, you know, 3/4 of the people in the state think that there's something to it. I think Verona wants to be in the vanguard and with towns that are sort of looking forward and being modern rather than the towns who are sticking with what's been done just because that's how it's been done for the last 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
I'm Liz Stacy, 18,000 Drive, Verona. What I want to point out, because everybody's got their ideas of pros and cons, but Verona is a different town compared to all the other towns in our area. We're a small town, we don't have a lot of industry, so comparing us to other towns like Caldwell, it's just, we're not comparing apples with apples. And we don't want to be a regional school district. There's money should be spent, I believe, on the high school. I think when you're moving into the district, you're looking at the high schools, you're looking at the middle schools. I have 3 kids that went through the program. They had a wonderful education. The high school is fantastic, the band is wonderful. There's so many other ways that money can be spent. And I just feel that a full-day kindergarten is not the way to go. And I am a teacher, and I really don't see the benefit of, if you say, an hour of centers. They can incorporate the center. Sometimes learning how to put your coat on by yourself for half an hour. These kids are 5 years old. There is so much time for them to grow up and to just have that moment of just no TV, playing with some things in your backyard. It's just, it's going. Now, the difference is between now and 20 years ago is probably because families have 2 working parents. And that's unfortunate that that's what you have to do to move into Verona these days. But you have to understand, we are a different town. It's a type of town where not everybody leaves for 8 weeks during the summer and goes to a summer camp. The kids aren't always scheduled like other towns. I don't work in Verona, I work in a different town, and the little kids are so overly scheduled. And you only need, it's only 1 year, and then first grade, it's done. And they're exhausted after first grade, so that's my opinion. We don't want to necessarily be like all the other towns. Verona, I used to always say, we had crossing guards that were there for 40, 50 years. We're almost like Walton Mountain, but with a wonderful school system. I mean, my kids, I couldn't ask for anything else.
So I just don't necessarily think it's for, it's gonna benefit the kids' education. I can't speak about this, thank you. I'm a nervous wreck.
Anybody else? All right, our next meeting is on October 30th, so we did reschedule the next meeting. It's not on the original calendar that you might have in the refrigerator, but it is now scheduled for October the 30th, a confidential session at 7:30, and then public meeting at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.